So we know that products are made in factories, but brands are built in the hearts and minds of people. And so every opportunity that you get to share an experience or build that reputation or create an expectation, you have to nurture or influence that relationship. So as a designer who's moving into brand strategy space, you have to consider all of that. And that's why I think people want to be brand strategists, because you get to do something important. You get to shape the company. And I just want to say a quick thank you to the people who made this possible, and then we're going to move on.
Today's episode is brought to you by Teachable, the platform that has helped hundreds of thousands of creators grow online businesses. We've used it for years here at the Futur, and we found it so easy to do things like hosting our courses, manage affiliates, and processing payments. It's been a crucial part of our 1 billion mission to help you make a living doing what you love. If you'd like to sell a course or a digital product of your own, head to teachable.com/the Futur to try it for yourself. They've got an exclusive offer just for the Futur fam. 3 months of their paid pro plan for only $99 with the code TheFutur99. You'll save over $350 if you sign up today. All right, let's get back to the video.
So I'm going to start off today with like a couple of quick stories about how I got into brand strategy, so there's some context for this conversation and where I went with it. So if your expectations aren't fitting within that, let's have a conversation. And the very first person I saw do branding, it kind of blew my mind. It's a woman, her name is Yo Santosa, and she runs a company called Ferro Concrete. She's an arts undergrad, and we went through the same program, though what she was able to do was very different than what I was able to do. And I looked at it like I studied graphic design. Of course, she went to school like many years after I did, and she started doing branding. I was just really intrigued by it because for a very long time, we're a design production company, so we work with agencies, like advertising agencies. So they did the strategy, they would write the copy, we would figure out creative ways to bring that to life in video and animation, but we didn't do the strategic part. So when I saw her doing this stuff, and I was just like semi-intrigued and really just jealous. Like, how do you do that? Did we go to the same school, and did you have some secret sauce? So I started to study it, and some of you who watch my videos understand like how my brain works. I'm very logical. I break things down, and it's just started to unravel everything and try to find the recipe for it. I even interviewed her and asked her all these questions that I wanted to know in hopes that I would be able to share with all of you. But she struggled with telling me how she did what she did. That's okay, because I figured it out. All right, and I'm here to share it with you. And back, I don't know, in the early 2000s, Pinkberry, as a frozen froyo place, was just blowing up. And she did some incredible work for Pinkberry, which opened my mind as to what designers could do. They started to design copy, the website, signage, and really worked with them in expanding their brand. And when we talk about brand, and we'll get into a little bit more later, it's way deeper than what I thought it was and what designers could do. And her inspiration for the entire Pinkberry look was she was really into high-end cosmetics. And so if you understand that, then you look at this, you're like, oh, I see. Like if you look at the way cosmetics are photographed, the powders and all the serums, it's very clean, it's white, it's minimal, it's very luxurious in its simple presentation. And there's in the copy that she would write too, like, I didn't know you could do this. Instead of saying just open from 11 to 11, she would write swirling daily. So she's working with copywriters, and this really excited me. I'll show you just a little bit more of her work to give you the context. So for me, this is what graphic designers do. We design identity systems, not branding. Now, I know it's a very popular phrase that people use, like, I do branding. No, you don't. If you don't shape the entire customer experience from point A to point B, then you're not really doing branding. You're using that as a buzzword because you think you can charge more money. There's nothing really wrong with that. You can call yourself whatever you want. But if you're a purist and you're just like, no, not really, you're misrepresenting there, okay? And so she would come up with campaigns, write copy, come up with image recipes. She would design websites and also apps. And I was just like, this is so cool. And here I am just totally confused. Like, that's not really me. I'm like, how are you doing this? And I just couldn't figure it out back then. It was so mysterious and so sexy. I'm like, I want that. And then I meet this guy, Jose. And Jose comes from the web design space, user experience design. He worked in Silicon Valley with startups and was part of that whole culture. And he wanted to show me how to do user experience design. And the story's going to come to a point here in a second. So he showed me this thing that he had co-developed with some of his very smart friends about like what branding and user experience is. Somewhere between the brand, the user, and the business goals is what they do. And he developed this framework called CORE, and he showed it to me, and I influenced a little bit of how it was shaped. And some of you, how many of you guys have purchased CORE or are using CORE? Great, thank you very much. So there's 3 of you. So you have an advantage over everybody else, because what I'm doing is my version of it, taking to whatever level, applied for branding. And so this was an eye-opening experience for me, because throughout my years in Art Center and after Art Center for almost 20 years at that point, I didn't understand that we're designing for someone. And you can't build a website or an app if you don't design for someone, very specific cases. So he introduced me to this concept of a user profile. And so when you design a website, you have to know who are the stakeholders, who's going to be using it, not just the end user, but the administrators or the content creators. And you design a use case for each one of those people, and you see where they intersect, and you create different portals depending on who's interacting with it. Like the classic example of an airline. You think you design the airline website just for the end user, but you don't. You design one for the travel agent. You might design one for the airline itself and all the different partners. And so there's different ways of interaction. But the big insight was when you design for someone, it really shapes how you think about the design. Makes sense, right? And that was like a big epiphany for me, like, wow, this is how you do it. And of course, he took it where you're supposed to take these things. He would use it to build wireframes for websites or flow charts. And then he would get into the web design. This is actually literally from one of our episodes where I was designing a website the correct way for the first time in my life. And I'm semi-ashamed or guilty of designing websites as digital brochures. I've done this before, and you should spank me for it later. So when he showed it to me, I'm like, wow, I can come up with ideas for features and functions. I was developing tools. It felt really empowering to be able to do this. Now, if you're squinting your eyes, I know some of you are, you're like, what is going on here? But if you're in the web space, you understand this. This makes a lot of sense. So that's where the big shift happened for me, was creating something built around an experience. But I immediately saw something much cooler than this. Whereas Jose would start with defining the brand voice and the tone and the culture of the brand, if we're doing user experience design, shouldn't we be focused on the user first? And he and I would butt heads on this. I always wanted to start teaching and running workshops with a user point of view before we got into the brand. It's much easier for the brand to understand the needs of the users and create products for them than it is to say, we have a product, now let's go find a user. So philosophically, it might look like it's the same, but for me, fundamentally, it was a very different, almost seismic shift. I'm semi-conscious because my skirt's going to fall off here. I'm going to take it off in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to show you now the very first time it's an apron, we did brand strategy. Somebody called it a skirt before. I just went with that. I'm like, it's just an apron, guys. All right, because you're like, he's going to take off his skirt. It's not going to work. You don't want to see that either, by the way. The very first time we did brand strategy independently of Jose was for a client called Tangoe. I'm the kind of person who learns a little bit, and I'm super dangerous because I go telling people I'm going to do this now. And then you get hired for it, and then you panic and you break out in a cold sweat. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. So we do the core exercises as I'm adapting it for branding and building other things, okay? We came upon 2 insights. These are facilitated full-day workshops, 6 to 8 hours, in a room where executives flew in from across the country to meet with us. Keep in mind, it's the first time I'm doing it by myself. Pretty scary, and I've only done it twice. This is like the second time, all right? So when we're talking to the chief revenue officer, I forget his name, but he said something like, Chris, I don't know, man. What we do is not sexy, but what we do is we save people money, and that's a big deal for us. They're an IT expense management company. They help large corporations plug the leaking boat, if you will. If you can imagine, when you have thousands of employees, laptops and cell phones and cell plans, there's lots of money wasted, so they're able to help companies manage their IT expenses. Makes sense, right? Now, I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it took hours for us to understand what they did. They use very complicated language. And I'll give you one tip here. When you're working with your clients and they say things you don't understand, because you're going to be a brand strategist, facilitator after this point, if you don't understand something, you have to be brave enough to say, I do not understand what you're saying. They started using acronyms and jargon I just did not understand at all. And I raised my hand. I kind of, after hours of this, I'm like, my mind is going to explode. I don't know what they're talking about. And I have to make something from this. So you have to be brave enough to say something. I raised my hand and I said, hey, everybody, you guys are talking inside baseball. I do not know what you're talking about. You need to explain this to me like I'm your mom or a fifth grader, because I'm the guy who has to write the copy and build the stuff that people use. I suspect you're having problems with your website, with your identity, with your communication, because you're speaking very inside baseball at this point. No one understands. And to my surprise and delight, they all just laughed, and there was a big sigh in the room as if I just let the pressure valve open. And it was really cool to do that. So I'm going to continue on this theme where if you're fully transparent, embrace that what you know and what you don't know, it's going to be much, much easier. But this was a really big insight. Insight number 2, and there are many, I'm just going to pull out 2 insights for you, is that they looked at their customers with disdain. They considered them like a necessary evil. And I know some of you, I won't make you raise your hand, but some of you think your clients get in the way of your ability to do good work. That's a horrific, combative way of looking at the people who make what you do possible. So we want to get rid of that attitude too. And so we kept working on defining their ideal customer, their user, the people who are going to buy their services. And we found out that at the core of every 21st century business, every operation is the IT person. They're blamed for everything. They get no credit, and they're just looked down upon. They're very much maligned. I said, they're just not the hero of every operation. They're the superhero. And for the first time, we could see the energy shift again from disdain to deep empathy and gratitude. Our email server went down for like a day. We all freaked out. It's like, we don't know what to do. We're looking at each other like no one speaks English anymore. And then I called up our IT person, like, can you fix this? I'm on it right now. Have you ever had that kind of problem before? Yes. So now you know, it's like, we shouldn't be yelling at them. We shouldn't be blaming them. We should be thanking them. Okay. Those 2 insights started to drive everything else that you'll see here today, okay? In terms of like what I'm about to present to you. So the company's name is Tangoe, and we developed a bunch of logos. Emily's an amazing designer. She would do all these designs. And then I looked at one of her designs. I'm like, wait, change this, do this, because I have an idea on how to sell it. This is the logo they ultimately bought. And I'll tell you how I sold it, okay? I think the typeface is accurate for those of you guys that know your typefaces. And she modified the descender of the G. It's a 2-story G. And I was like, just cut it off like that. Make it very stylized. She goes, okay, I can do that. So when I went to present all these different logo ideas, I came up on this and I said, you guys are about the bottom line. Like, I get it. They like, show us no more logos, we're done. So sometimes a little customer insight turns into a design expression that is abstract but has meaning to them, and they can then take that and sell it all the way through marketing, through the CEO and every CFO. Don't you guys get it? We're about the bottom line. Okay. So then that informed everything else. The use of lines and the colors. Some of you guys are like, they look like future colors. I'm like, yeah, who knows what happened. All right. So then we started writing copy. Something I've never done before. And I'll read you some of the lines. And given the 2 insights I shared with you, they save people money, and that's cool. And the people that work, their customers should be embraced as these heroes of 21st century businesses, right? So there's the leaky bucket. It says IT expenses out of control. Gain visibility of shadow IT, because what they offer their customers is transparency. You can know where your money is going, and you can plug the boat. It's just simple copywriting. It's not trying to write just do it, because I'm not that kind of copywriter, but it's effective in its communication. Single syllable words, 5th graders can understand. Spend less, do more. They have this product called the Matrix. So having this ability to look into a space and understand like where everybody's at. So that was a concept, right? Like who's spending what's their data plan look like? So we're trying to show it visually. Superficial versus super fiscal. Just a play on words there. And something had happened in me when I was working on this project. I realized I thought I got into design to escape words and copy. But I was just like, I think I can write copy now. this is kind of fun to do, to find the right word combinations. It's difficult because you're going to find out tomorrow when you have to write copy. But it's once you figure out that there's a game and there's a puzzle and a framework, then it becomes much, much easier. So where do we get this superficial versus superficial? Because they're not just the hero, they're the superhero. So we started playing around with themes of the Justice League and superhero. So you know where this line comes from. Check it out. With great visibility comes great power. That's the Peter Parker Spider-Man line, right? But it's like with great power comes great responsibility. We just switched the words around. The diligent dollar defender. And Titan of IT. And boosting the bottom line. And then we would do this into mock-ups. We designed their website. Please don't look up the website. Since working on it, they fired the entire team. Somebody else came in. Like the entire C-suite was like, something weird happened. They nuked the whole thing. And so now if you go check it out, it looks nothing like this. And it was wonderful too, because then having done the logo, their identity system, their website, and their copywriting, they asked us to design videos for them. So this just grows and grows. Like once you get to know the client's needs better than they can articulate it, you're in real deep at this point. So the engagement, I think, started, under $100,000 and quickly ballooned to $250,000. They paid $100,000 just for the video itself. So this is the benefit of you being able to have this conversation. When we took break for the first day, that 4 hours that we're in, he turned to me, he said something amazing. He said, Chris, you've been able to do more in hours than we have been able to do in months. As you know, as a designer who services people, I'm like, that feels pretty good to hear something like that. And towards the end, and if you're doing this right, they'll stand up and hug you privately, not all together, but they're like, when the other guys are gone, they just lean in and give you a hug. I'm like, this feels good. I've been working in commercial production, working with ad agencies for years at this point. None of them have ever given me a hug. It's because they saw me as a person who made things, not as a partner trying to help them facilitate their goals and achieve something and solve a big problem. So terms and definitions, it's important for us to share the correct dialogue when we're talking about things. This is going to be like these really, really rapid fire things I'm going to do with you, okay? So I just want you to complete this sentence. A brand is, what is a brand? Like 2 words, gut feeling, anybody else? A brand is what? Okay, perception? Customer perception? Perfect. Okay, what else? Ability to deliver promises. Okay. These are excellent. Oh, you guys are too smart. Notice nobody said a logo. I love it. Expectations. You don't know. You have not seen what I've seen. Okay, very good. So there are many definitions of what a brand is, and I think we're really, really close. So it's like 98%. Any one of those things that you said, I think feel right to me. There were no wrong answers. There will be wrong answers today, I guarantee it. But so far, so good. The crowd is smart in Miami here. Okay, so if we go to Mr. Marty Neumeyer, who writes about branding all the time, a professional friend, colleague, and now, I think personal friend too. A brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. So it's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. And who's they? And he writes in a different book, I think it's maybe Brand Flip, when enough people share a gut feeling, then you have a brand. So inevitably, when you read that or you say that out loud, well, the next question is, how many is enough people? I don't know. I would say more than half the people you're talking to. Then I think 51%, that's your brand. So we can see that then there's multiple interpretations of this because not everyone has the same experience. So when we're working with our customers, with our clients who have customers, we have to understand what the perception is today, where they would like to move it to, okay? So very good. So we know that products are made in factories, but brands are built in the hearts and minds of people. And so every opportunity that you get to share an experience or build that reputation or create an expectation, you have to nurture or influence that relationship. So as a designer who's moving into brand strategy space, you have to consider all of that. And that's why I think people want to be brand strategists, because you get to do something important. You get to shape the company. So if we understand what branding is, I promise you the prompts get a little bit harder, okay? So feel free to write in your book whatever you think, but you can write it in later too. Therefore, branding is what? So a brand is a person's gut feeling. It's about the promises that you make and your ability to deliver on those things. It's about the character and your values and creating expectations. Then what is branding, if that's brand? Oh, now you're not so fast. Building what? Building those feelings? Building a logo? Okay, we knew the logo comment's coming. It's coming. Here we go. What? The visual audio application of all those principles, okay? The feelings translated to visuals. Okay, so now it's kind of real interesting. We're starting to talk about tangible things now. Curating experience? Okay, hold on to that thought. I need another marker here. If this is a brand, what is your name? Liz? Liz says it's shaping all of that. That sounds pretty smart to me. If this is the brand, then branding is how we influence or shape all that. That makes a lot of sense. Are you a brand strategist, by the way? Even better. You're like, I'm brand strategist by osmosis. I've been doing it in my sleep, baby. I got this. So you're going to crush this, right? So we'll just say, watch out for the table of three. The three ladies are just destroy. She's just not even trying. She's doing it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. There was an article in Harvard Business Review. I think it was the May-June issue of this year. I'm very much into brand and branding and personal brand. So when I saw this, somebody posted this online, I had to go to the bookstore, the newsstand. They still exist somewhere. I'm like, where's the copy of this? So it's not my local newsstand, so I had to find a Barnes & Noble in Glendale, and I went in there and I bought this, and I read it, and the article sucked. HBR is not all that it's cracked up to be. You read this? Have you read this article? Save your money. Just save your money right now. Okay. They're written by really smart people, usually Harvard graduates, but this one was really about like tuning your resume to get a job, a job. I'm like, I'm not interested at all. This is totally missing the point, in my opinion. But there was an article before this article that was much more interesting. It was about how to measure branding versus marketing. That article is worth reading. We're not going to talk about the article today, but it said something like your brand is being shaped at every interaction because someone's forming an opinion about you. That's consistent with what we've been talking about, right? It's promises, it's experiences, it's people's gut feeling, and so that gut feeling is being changed every single day. Some of you came in this morning with a feeling about me. Hopefully it gets better, and then tomorrow it goes down. Who knows what's going to happen? But that's why you could never let it down. This is also why you can't create a false brand, because people are going to see right through it almost immediately. Because we live in a new time when companies no longer control our perceptions because of social media. Good news travels fast, bad news travels even faster, right? So we, the consumer, now are taking over the brand. We own the brand, the customers, okay? And of course, Jeff Bezos says your brand is what people say when you're not in the room. It's your reputation. We get that. Go ahead. Okay, the fake brand, I'll give you the example. Back in the day when companies can control the narrative, they might say like something like quality's job one. What company is that? Quality's job number one. No, there's a very specific brand. What? No? Okay, this is how old I am. Or how you're not paying attention. Nobody knows quality's job number one. They probably had to change this because it's not true. It was Ford. Do you guys remember? Ford, quality's job number one. And I'll tell you something. I'm an immigrant, a refugee from Vietnam. My parents, when they came here, we escaped communism. And so my parents were so grateful for America. My dad is, oh, China, that's terrible. Buy American, right? So when he had the opportunity to, we bought like a minivan. The very first year, the Ford Aerostar came out, okay? And I got to tell you something. I was in high school, and I was in the French club, and we had to like sell candy or stupid things to earn enough money to have this fancy French dinner in the hills somewhere. And right, so my parents are driving me and my cousin and my little brother. It's a fancy French restaurant. We're going to use all our French that we supposedly learned. And we pulled up onto this gravel road, pulled up to the side. I'm like, Mom, see you later. Just park in the darkness. We don't ever want to see you again. Please don't let any of my friends see you. I flip the door open, the sliding door, and the whole door falls off. Quality is job number one. My face went like just totally red. I just started sweating immediately. Like, my cousin Tom, like, hold the door so it doesn't look so bad. Like we're just like saying a long goodbye or something right now. Help me put the door back on. And the first time we took a road trip in that Aerostar, it was across from San Jose to Las Vegas. It broke in the desert. So my mom and dad, super hot desert, my two brothers, my dad and my older brother had to run across the highway to hitchhike to go to the gas station. Quality is job number one. That is a fake brand. Clearly, it's not number one. To this day, my dad's like, I guess we're done with Ford. He bought a Honda. It's never broken. Okay? But I love this idea from Dr. Christine Lucer, who teaches at the Minerva Institute, the Minerva Project. And she's like, Chris, do you know what impression management is? Like, yeah? She goes, what's an example of impression management? So I'm going to ask you, what is impression management?
Deal with the way people see you or perceive you. Or
But give me an example. How are you doing impression management on a human level?
Like politicians when they...
No, give me politicians? What would they do?
Politicians when they have to deal with something that's against what they are saying. Like finding a way to have an excuse that is still believable.
Okay, let me ask you on a very personal level, how have you personally have done impression management? So if you want to say, we'll throw the mic over to you. Okay, here, it's real easy. It's a short trip for me.
The way I dress.
Give you more words?
Okay, so when before I'm going out in public, I actually take a strategic approach a long period of time, and I wear certain clothes for me that translate to you, my brand.
Okay, give me one very specific instance.
I'm wearing a breast cancer bracelet by David Yerman, his wife, and he started the business, and he used to be a welder. My husband was a welder. He's no longer with us. Everything that I'm wearing is my own trademark and my name. My shoes were done by my daughter. That's enough.
Okay, thank you. That was excellent. That was excellent. So for sure, like if you're on a date, you're going to dress up for it. You'll comb your hair. You'll wash your clothes. You'll do something because you want to make that good first impression. If you're showing up for a job interview, they say dress for the job you want, not the one that you have. So you need to connect culturally to them. If they're very suit and tie, three-piece suit, don't come in shorts and flip-flops. Conversely, if you work in the creative industry, do not show up in a suit. They'll make fun of you. You know, my younger brother, when he first arrived in LA, he showed up for a job interview and he wore an ill-fitted suit. And the guy said, never come back again like that, but we'll hire you. And so he worked in the industry for a really long time. So you have to kind of match what the expectations are. We get that, right? And so we can see that if we are managing impressions, that is branding. We're trying to shape and influence it. We can't control it. We can't control people. We can't control their feelings, but we can definitely influence it for sure. Okay, so I think we're all on board. We're all on the same page here. That unfortunately, the vast majority of people outside of this room that call themselves designers do not understand what brand and branding is. For them, it's this. And there's real reason why they're confused by this, right? Because when Nike, over the last couple of decades, have done everything they can to shape your impression of them, we come to symbolize it in a mark. And then they think, well, the Nike shoe's not worth anything if you take that mark away. Is that true or false? Mostly true. Mostly true, because if it was a knockoff brand, let's just say it was like Skechers, they both cover your feet, they both have cushioning, they both have materials, but it's a totally different experience, the one that we tell ourselves. So that's why designers think, it's the logo. I created all the meaning. And I'm forgetting his name now. I interviewed him on this. And he says the logo is just a container for meaning. This is a critical thing for you to understand. A logo is just a container for meaning. Everybody that's part of that company, from the marketing team down to the customer service to the intern, puts meaning in the container. Then the container has to be beautiful, it has to be open, it has to be something that could withstand the rigors of different applications and time. So there is real value in creating that. There are wonderful brands that I love that have a horrible logo that I just cannot buy because I'm a snob. I shouldn't be caught up in that, but the aesthetics do matter to me, okay? As many of you will, we're in the same camp. So everything else that's underneath, the things that we don't see, the voice, the messaging, the behavior, the beliefs, the values, the entire customer experience is what makes up that brand. But the public sees that. So we understand now why there's some confusion there.
Today's episode is brought to you by Teachable, the platform we at the Futur have used for years to serve up our best-selling courses and templates. Right now, you can get 3 months of their pro plan for just $99 with the code TheFuture99 and enjoy premium features to elevate your business.